The message that women need to understand here is these symptoms of perimenopause. And this is where I want to make the paradigm shift in women to have them take this stance is the symptoms of perimenopause are not that of perimenopause, but of estrogen deficiency. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MeNoPause Moxie podcast, where we challenge the status quo on perimenopause, menopause, and female hormone balancing. So September is Perimenopause Awareness Month. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about perimenopause, what it is, how to define it, what the symptoms are, and how to know if you're experiencing it. So I'm here today with my producer and co-host, Maggie Kuhn. Welcome to the show, Maggie.
Hey Marie, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well today. I love this topic.
Yeah, I do as well, because perimenopause is so confusing. And I guess I'd like to just start with asking you, what is perimenopause? How is it defined?
Yeah, with just about anything when it comes to female hormone balancing, perimenopause also has confusing terms, and women can get very confused about it. So I'm going to tell you what the conventional mindset of perimenopause is, and then I'll tell you what my definition is. So conventional medicine mindset when it comes to perimenopause is that it begins the 10 years leading up to the menopause, the 1 year anniversary of not having a menstrual bleed, and that it is a transitional phase that women go through, and that it's caused by fluctuating hormones, which you know how I feel about that term fluctuating. It's just no real definition when it comes to explain what's going on. And that perimenopause is inevitable just like menopause is, and that it needs to be managed with drugs, surgeries, treatments, or women just need to suffer through, or they're put on low dose hormone therapy. But being in this field for a couple of decades, my definition about perimenopause has certainly changed. I think women need to understand that perimenopause, it is a transitional process leading up to the menopause, but it's a 3-staged process. So there's 3 stages. There's early, there's the middle stage, and then there's late stage perimenopause. And each stage may have similar side effects, but each stage women will experience more severe symptoms as each stage passes. But perimenopause can start long before 10 years before the menopause. I mean, it can start in a woman's early 30s. In fact, some women never have a healthy menstrual cycle. They just age into this stage 1 perimenopause. I also don't believe perimenopause is inevitable. I think that perimenopause is preventable, and that's really what I'd like to. We'll be talking about more in the next episode is how we can prevent it. But I think women really need to understand that it's 3 phases.
That's a pretty radical idea that menopause is preventable. So women are definitely going to want to listen to our next episode. But
Yeah.
tell me more about the 3 phases.
Well, so the first phase of perimenopause happened closer to a woman's early to mid 30s. And this is a time where periods are slightly irregular, and women are noticing they're having period bleeds a little longer or a little shorter than usual. And this particular phase, well, all phases are influenced by estrogen levels. This is a noticeable time in a woman's life in this phase where estrogen has gotten so low that it's now impacting the processes of the female body, such as the menstrual cycle. So a woman may feel depression or anxiety in this first phase. They will notice that it intensifies in the second phase. So in the first phase, the periods are a little irregular, but the estrogen is declining and the FSH is still low. And for the listeners, FSH is a barometer hormone that savvy doctors measure to determine where she is in her reproductive life stage. So you would look at FSH like if your estrogen gets low, well, your FSH creeps up and tells your brain that you need more estrogen. And this is significant in these 3 stages because in the first stage, FSH is low, but estrogen is starting to decline. In the second phase, estrogen continues to decline, but this decline now is triggering a rise in FSH. And so we see low estrogen levels and a raising of the FSH.
And what's
And
the implication of that? What does that mean to a woman or a doctor?
well, to both a doctor and a woman, when FSH rises, that's the barometer, that's the messaging in the brain that the body needs more estrogen or that the body is in distress. And so you'll notice that as estrogen decreases and FSH increases, so do the symptoms, the mental illness symptoms women experience and the physical symptoms women experience. So that's why each stage women feel worse than the stage before, because each stage is marked by lower and lower estrogen levels and higher FSH levels. I mean, when I say FSH is the most important hormone a woman can test, it really is true. This is really the true barometer of women, whether a women need estrogen or not.
Is there a is there a range that you're talking about? Like what's considered a rising FSH?
Well, women typically do best. Like if a woman were in her reproductive prime and estrogen was at optimal levels, then we see the FSH somewhere suppressed well below 5. But it
Okay.
depends on the hormone replacement therapy a woman takes on where this optimal level is. In the second phase, what we do is we see FSH is increasing over 5 and into 10 to 15. And then this messaging to the brain is the woman is starving for estrogen. And so the symptoms of depression intensify, anxiety intensifies, headaches get worse, migraines get worse, libido gets worse. So, and this is, I think, one of the instinctual things that women feel is they feel this decline and they see where the trajectory is going and it doesn't look or feel good for them. And so just this alone gives women a panic, especially in this second phase.
Right. And I think many of us might think that, okay, so this is probably around mid 30s or so, mid to late 30s. I've got a few kids, possibly. I've got a career, possibly. Um, things haven't been quite the same ever since I gave childbirth. I never suspected that that's what was going on here. I just figured that it was all the responsibilities of my life in my mid to late 30s of 3 kids, a full-time career, a husband, a home. There was a lot going on.
Yeah, and this is what was going on with me too when I was working in the clinic here and learning this at the same time. And as I mentioned in other episodes, part of my job as a clinical hormone coach is I meet with every patient who appears to be a good candidate for a more advanced program like what we offer. And then I would sit down with women who would come to me in consultation and they would start to describe to me what their life is like. I was surprised how consistent in each stage women describe themselves, even though they weren't describing a stage. When the patient would talk to me and tell me how they felt, and I would look at their lab levels, and I'm like, okay, it seems like everybody that's in this particular lab range has these conversations and this much misery. And then I made that relation going, okay, I went through that too. And then, and then mid phase, in the mid perimenopause, it's like women were all saying the same thing. So women who manage an FSH above, like say between, 10 and 25, I mean, they had the same symptoms as stage 1, but they were more intensified.
Mhm.
And so this is how we made the direct correlation between how a woman feels and her estrogen levels and her FSH levels. So
Mm.
by the time that women get into stage 3 or late stage perimenopause, there really is a type of rude awakening and an acceptance that a woman's life is just, this is the way it's going to be, that
Mhm.
it's not going to get better. And this in second stage really is where the first stage is like, is this really happening? What's going on with my body? I'm trying to run around and trying to do all that I can to cope with these symptoms. Then by stage 2, women are like, oh, this is perimenopause. And then there's like, so this is my life.
If they even know what perimenopause is, they
Well,
may just
usually
think they're
women
falling apart.
And that was the beginning many years ago. But now with social media and these social media groups and women talking about it, and now just more women are talking about the term perimenopause when we didn't talk about that 20 years ago. And so it's like, yeah, how am I feeling? They're putting in their symptoms in Google and then they're finding, oh, this is perimenopause. What's perimenopause? And well, now there's something that's connected, but what everybody's doing is taking all three stages and globbing them into one thing. And but if women understand that it's a three-stage process and each stage is marked by lower and lower estrogen levels, that explains why the symptoms of perimenopause are really the symptoms of estrogen deficiency.
Mm. Let's talk a little bit more about the symptoms of perimenopause. What might women be experiencing or feeling? What are they showing up to your clinic presenting with?
Well, the first things that happens, many people think, oh, the menstrual cycles become dysfunctional. That's the first sign, but no, it's really mental illness experiences like depression, anxiety. And some women will say, oh, I've had this my whole life. And then after we work with these patients and we realize, well, actually, you've never had a healthy menstrual cycle, which is the true sign of whether women have plenty of estrogen or not, then we can pretty much determine if how long a woman has been estrogen deficient.
Mm.
And most women see that they have been spent the majority of their lives chasing the symptoms of estrogen deficiency with birth control pills and all the medications that they've been prescribed. So even though women had depression and anxiety before perimenopause, it will worsen in stage 1, 2, and 3 as each stages go on. Or a woman won't even experience depression and anxiety until maybe the first phase or even the second phase of perimenopause, where they never had a mental illness before. But it's just the message that women need to understand here is these symptoms of perimenopause. And this is where I want to make the paradigm shift in women to have them take this stance is the symptoms of perimenopause are not that of perimenopause, but of estrogen deficiency.
Hmm.
So in stage 1, women will experience depression and anxiety and headaches and migraines, but it'll feel worse in stage 2 and then stage 3. So first, women will feel the mental illness, the brain fog, the depression, anxiety, and then usually they'll be like, okay, my periods are just horrible. My period is not stopping. I'm on day 45, or their periods aren't happening. So the menstrual cycle changes are really uh, prevalent in stage 2.
Mm.
Stage 3, they'll get more hot flashes. They'll get more things that mimic menopause. So they'll get hot flashes. They won't be able to sleep at night. They'll have sleep disturbances in the first phase and they'll get worse in the second phase. And then by stage 3, they'll just feel worse. And they'll find it harder and harder to lose weight as each stage passes.
And
Um,
I would imagine that these one thing begets another thing. So I'm
yeah.
not sleeping. And so now I'm feeling more anxious. And, it's hard to pull this apart, I think, to really understand what's going on. And again, I gotta say, well, first of all, when I was going through perimenopause, that I don't think there was a term for it. At least maybe there was medically, but it was not talked about. Menopause wasn't talked about. Um, I, I had no idea that this is what was going on for me. And when I think I've shared this with you. I went to a massage therapist at around age 40. I was living in a foreign country, and someone of a different nationality gave me a massage. And I have no idea how he knew, but afterwards he said, "You're in perimenopause." And it was like he had told me, "Your life has ended. Hope it was a good one.
Or it's about to real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah, your life as you've known it is over. Get ready for old ladyhood and say goodbye to, being luscious or juicy or sexy or having fun or being attractive, um, having your intellect." It felt like a death sentence.
Well, and it's scary for women because of that, but also because everybody talks about it, including your massage therapist, as if it were an inevitable condition that every woman will experience. Oh, well, you're in, like, it's a, oh, it can, does it show? Like, is it on me? Like, what is that? I
Yeah,
mean, how do you
that's
know
what
that?
I felt like. Like, whoa,
Like,
what is it? What
you
what
felt
what was
like,
the giveaway?
I
I
know.
still don't know. I still have no idea. I must have shared with him the things that I was feeling, all these symptoms you just described. I don't really recall doing that, but I probably did, which is why I probably went for a massage thinking I need to relax.
And
And
it's a label that women have really bought into, like it's a condition with symptoms. And this is what I want to change with this podcast and working, talking with you on this to open up this dialogue that the symptoms that women experience in perimenopause are not caused by perimenopause. Perimenopause is just the stage of decline. It's these three stages of decline that women are going in. And it's really, if you want to talk about the symptoms of perimenopause, we should be talking about the symptoms of estrogen deficiency, because that's what really that you're experiencing. So that your massage therapist, if they were really smart, they would say, oh, well, it looks like that you're estrogen deficient. Or, and if you don't take care of this, it will get worse and your symptoms will get worse. But there isn't a lot of data on the three stages of perimenopause, and especially extremely little data on what women can do about it. But
yeah,
the first is really recognizing, as you know, and that you've come to know, that perimenopause doesn't have symptoms. It's the symptoms that women experience through these three stages of perimenopause are caused by estrogen deficiency. And as you know, there's good news to that we'll talk about on our next episode on what women can do to prevent and reverse it.
yeah. I just want to say two things here. One is that even though perimenopause has become, quite the buzzword, and I think women probably in their 40s and early 50s are far more aware of it now, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I I'm going to guess that a lot of women still in their 30s, especially early 30s, have no idea that they may be in perimenopause and that some of the symptoms they're experiencing are this, because there is still this understanding, like you said at the beginning here, that perimenopause is 10 years before you hit menopause. And if menopause is somewhere in early 50s, then a 32-year-old woman thinks she's still got 10 or so years before she's even hitting this.
Yes, and when women are experiencing perimenopausal symptoms before their mid 30s, mid to late 30s, then these women are typically diagnosed with premature ovarian insufficiency or premature ovarian failure. They're not calling it pre-perimenopausal or premature perimenopause. They're giving it other names, but it's all the same. It's if the ovaries are responsible for producing estrogen and a woman is in premature ovarian failure, what's failing is her ability to produce plenty of estrogen and progesterone needed to regulate a healthy menstrual cycle. So if a woman is in her late 20s, early 30s, I mean, it's crazy how many women contact me that are in their late 20s, early 30s saying, I think I am in perimenopause. But if they, like I said, and even if they go to their conventional doctor or even their conventional gynecologist, they're reluctant to give the diagnosis of premature ovarian failure, POI, or premature ovarian failure, POI, insufficiency or failure. Um, it's the same thing. And then pretty soon, when a woman is old enough, it's like, okay, now you're in perimenopause, and now it's by age that they're in perimenopause. But when all along they've never had a healthy menstrual cycle, they're experiencing perimenopausal symptoms long before their time. And these women are just, get put through the ringer. They get their medical diagnoses, and now they're shelled out psychotropic drugs and uh, hormonal contraceptives that further shut down their ovarian production and puts them in chemical menopause. So, yeah, we need to get a better first line therapy for women when it comes to this, and educate physicians on what it is and not use that label. It's 10 years before the menopause. No, actually, Women can be perimenopausal their whole female adult life. We just don't call it that.
Hmm.
And that's why I want women to look at this as an estrogen deficiency condition.
Right. That's far more hopeful. And again, in our next episode, we're going to talk about that because there's something you can do about it. So let's talk about how others are talking about perimenopause. What are you seeing, and what do you have to say about some of what you're seeing?
Well, one of those is what I had just mentioned before is I really don't like the fact that we're talking about perimenopause as it's inevitable. Because when we do this, women typically take a victimhood stance on this, where they feel like, okay, I'm a victim of perimenopause. I'm a victim of this. I have this. I behave this way because I have this. Or I feel this way, and everybody has to tolerate my irrational responses to things because I'm perimenopausal. So there's a real victimhood of women. They don't have to be accountable so much for their behavior or their actions, and everybody else has to pick up the slack because they're in perimenopause. And then they just graduate into that victimhood mentality of menopause.
Hmm.
And then, of course, to feel like that you're a part of the group and you don't feel alone. A lot of women are going to social media and these social media groups, and they're all talking about the sisterhood of misery and how horrible everybody feels. And then women are just grabbing at straws, trying to manage their symptoms with supplements and products and ineffective HRT protocols and, black market hormones and peptides. And they're just scrambling to try to feel good because they don't really have anywhere to go for help.
Well, that is a huge, huge topic, and we touch on it in almost every episode, that the lack of training of prescribers, of physicians, and this goes back to the Women's Health Initiative study that came out in 2002 that put the fear of God in everyone that estrogen causes cancer. And, you know, every woman pretty much who was on hormone replacement therapy at the time was taken off. And at least a generation, because it's been 20 years now, of women and doctors were told to be afraid of estrogen, to stay away from estrogen. Uh, and so not only did a generation of women lose being on HRT and all the health benefits, we lost a generation of physicians and prescribers who understand it because it's not taught at all in medical school.
It's not. And so there's also this general consensus that this women have to suffer, that women have to just do anything they can to feel good at whatever cost. But the truth is that women really do stop caring about things, especially in the late stage perimenopause. There's just this development through the three stages of perimenopause where women really care less and less about themselves. They care less and less about their families. They care less and less about their children. They care less and less about their jobs or their career because they realize it's like, well, this is it. It's like, why should I care any longer? Nobody else does, and I can't do anything about it. I go to the doctor and they tell me I'm in perimenopause. And now I've got this condition that I'm stuck with.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, and I think it's sort of interrelated because women stop caring because they don't feel well. And then because they don't feel well, or they feel angry, or they feel anxiety or depression, that begets more of that. So it's a very vicious cycle and a downward spiral. And of course, there's this very, very popular movement right now, the We Do Not Care Club, on social media. And, part of it's fun and funny, and I think is a great outlet for women to let off steam and feel sisterhood. But you and I both have that concern that embedded within this is estrogen deficiency that's driving some of this we do not care. And I think that there's a difference between I don't care about how I look, I don't care about how I act, you're just going to have to deal with me because I'm in perimenopause or menopause, versus I don't care because I am a wise woman with plenty of estrogen who feels great about myself, and I don't need that stuff anymore, whatever that stuff is. So, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it really is. And I know that, we've had conversation about this before, the whole do not care movement. Melania, I'm sorry, her last name escapes me, but I do find her just adorable. And I really feel for her and her pain. And her followers are feeling that intensity of pain of they feel so horrible that they just don't care anymore about life. They don't care anymore about the way they look. They don't care anymore about pleasing people. They just want to throw in the towel. They want to be left alone. One of my consultations the other day, I told a woman what ends up happening is women, they just want to be left alone. They just set up their lives to where they have their children occupied someplace else in the house. Their husband's doing something else, and they just want to be left alone to watch their crime shows and play Candy Crush. And they live in this isolated one. One woman goes, "Did I put that down on my form?" I said, no, but it's like they can't cope, and they can't.
Hey, been there, totally understand it. Totally understand it. And again, it's so hard to pull these two things apart, right? Or it seems like it is, but you make it very clear. This is
Yeah, well,
estrogen deficiency, plain and simple.
because I tell you something, when you give these women estrogen, their do not care changes. They begin caring when women do get enough estrogen and you pull them out of their perimenopausal states, they start caring. They start caring about how they feel. They start caring about how they look because they feel good, and they can connect with people, and they can cope. Their coping skills increase, and they have more self-confidence, more self-reliance, and they can depend on themselves from one moment to the next because they know they're going to care in an hour. They know they're going to care the next day, the next week, the next month. And when women have this dependability, this self-reliance, and they feel good genuinely, organically, they just feel good for no real good reason, women care. But what they stop caring about when they get plenty of estrogen is trying to please other people when they know that that's not going to make them feel better. We pleased other people without estrogen because we didn't want to ruffle the feathers, because we couldn't handle the wrath if we didn't keep the peace. So women, estrogen deficient women, have learned to keep the peace because they can't cope, or they won't be able to fight for, or they don't feel like they'd be able to fight for themselves.
Or just blow up and walk away and say, boom, mic drop.
Yeah, and usually the reaction is out of proportion with the situation at hand. And so now the conversation is the behavior that was just so outrageous. And as estrogen sound women don't have those outrageous behaviors, and they don't have those explosive responses.
Yeah.
And so they stop caring about the things that don't matter, because they now have the ability to connect and to cope and to handle just about anything that comes their way. So yeah, so we want women to not care about the things that don't matter, except that really only can happen with estrogen. And
One is sort of defeatist, I don't care, and a fed upness,
very much so, yeah.
whereas the other is an estrogen
Empowerment,
sufficient.
I don't care.
Yes, it's an empowerment, I don't care.
Not a rebellious, yeah.
It's a measured, thoughtful, wise, I don't care.
Yep. So yeah, I think women need to start caring about the things that matter to them and stop caring about the things that don't matter. But don't fall for the movement of the misery of perimenopause. Women should really be looking for practitioners who don't believe perimenopause to be a condition that every woman needs to endure.
Hmm. Yeah, mind shift there. So, what are women doing about perimenopause right now? What are some of the more typical things that women are doing as these symptoms start kicking up?
Yeah, once women realize that there's something going on that's bigger than their mood, they do go on social media, and that's usually the first thing. And then they usually get a name of somebody to go to. Usually it's an online clinic who does low dose therapies, and then they find out that that stops working. Or they go to their primary care physician. And the doctor usually doesn't know a thing about hormones because they don't teach it in medical school. They don't teach about perimenopause or menopause or how to address it in medical school. So the doctors are prescribing. They get on the phone with the pharmacist and say, what do I give this patient? That happened a lot when I was the first years in the clinic. It's like, oh, let's call the pharmacist and see what the pharmacist recommends, because there wasn't any training. So now we're getting our direction from the pharmacist. So it's kind of like secondhand news. Um, and then once women realize that they're not getting anywhere with their primary care conventional doctor, then they go to a conventional gynecologist who's more brainwashed against estrogen, or their endocrinologist who's just as brainwashed against estrogen. And these specialists, if if they even do prescribe hormones at all, they tell the patient that they can only be on them for a short period of time. And the patient tends to feel this reluctance of the doctor wanting to, okay, I'll give it to you for just a little bit if you want it. It's like, well, no, I want you to tell me what I need to do.
Yeah, I mean, women are, and doctors, this lack of training. I mean, we can't emphasize enough the damage the WHI study did. Again, it's not just that women were taken off of estrogen and hormone therapy for the most part, and that an entire generation of women missed out. Like I said earlier, an entire generation of doctors who are the physicians women are going to right now received no training. And if they got anything, they heard that estrogen causes cancer, which it does not. And the FDA is removing that black box warning, but the damage was long done. So, you know, this is a real catch-22 for women and their doctors,
Well,
you
yeah,
know.
when they get into with these gynecologists, they're like, okay, I'm going to a specialist here. I mean, what better specialist can you go to for hormones than an endocrinologist or a gynecologist? They should know what they're doing. But a lot of them are just reading the package inserts of the sample, or they're going on WebMD, or they're getting on the patch website and looking at the dosing instructions. And then this is what women are given. And then women who get frustrated with this conventional medicine approach, they tend to, a lot of them stumble upon functional medicine practitioners. So a conventional functional medicine practitioner is not that different than a conventional primary care practitioner or specialist, in that functional medicine doctors, as you know, functional medicine is an approach to medicine where the doctor gets to the root cause of the problem and then treats the problem as naturally as possible at the root cause. That's the big claim to fame of functional medicine. Let's get the root cause, let's fix it as naturally as possible, let's get full restoration. Well, functional medicine fails women in this regard. Functional medicine, they still practice low dose estrogen treatments. The one big difference with functional medicine practitioners is they use bioidentical hormones, though not, there's no real true bioidentical hormone. All hormones are synthesized in a lab. But with the bioidentical hormones, the hormones are supposed to replicate the natural molecular structure of a human cell, so that the body identifies that hormone to be its own, and then it responds in that regard. But with functional medicine, just like conventional medicine, women are given low dose treatments, a patch, a low dose patch, a low dose transdermal compound, but it'll stop working in about 6 to 9 months because it's considered low dose. So now, instead of the functional medicines writing prescriptions for psychotropic drugs to manage the symptoms of hormone deficiencies, functional medicine doctors are selling the patients hundreds of dollars a month in supplements to manage the symptoms of estrogen deficiencies that weren't fixed because low HRT was prescribed. So now this is what women are going through: social media, conventional doctors, conventional specialists, functional medicine doctors, and they realize, guess what? They're back in the same boat. They haven't gotten any better, but they're more broke. They feel hopeless. They've spent more money, but they're still in the same place. They're still estrogen deficient. They still have a high FSH. They still don't have a healthy period. They still have depression, migraines, headaches, feel like hell. And so where are women to go? And so now they just feel overwhelmed in this state of perimenopause, thinking, well, I guess I'm just going to have to ride it out. So I might as well not care. At least I'll just take care of me and I'll eat my hot and spicy pork rinds and drink my cherry Slurpees. And I don't care if I get fat and I don't care if I have a libido. My husband, he can just go do whatever because I stopped caring about him too. And it's so sad that this is the trajectory of the treatment that perimenopausal women get. So they end up on low dose therapies and medications and supplements for the rest of their life. And then this is what women are offered. But as you know, I don't accept that. We don't look at it this way. And there are so many other things that women can do to make their lives better. And it really does start with full hormone restoration, not these minuscule droplets that women are given in the name of HRT.
Well, to give women some hope, and we don't want to leave them hanging, in our very next episode, we are going to talk about what some of these options are and how to prevent perimenopause. And in episode 6, you really take our listeners through the various generations of HRT that you're talking about, and help women understand the difference between low dose and full restoration. So women have that to look forward to. We're not going to leave them in the lurch here. There are options, there are solutions, and there's a mind shift available if you want to take it.
Oh, certainly. I'm really looking forward to our next episode because it really does give women hope. In fact, our next episode really is the episode that can change the world. If women did what we recommended by fully restoring their hormones with a good HRT protocol, then they don't have to experience perimenopause at all. And if you find yourself in the midst of perimenopause, you can reverse it and prevent it for life. And this is really why I do what I do. And I know, Maggie, that's why you like being involved with this, because we don't have to settle for less. We don't have to settle for this deficiency HRT protocol that women are shelled out. So yeah, next episode is going to be really nice for women. So don't miss that episode.
Yeah. Well, and I am, my interest in this is that I've been there. I was one of those women who,
Too.
thought I was taking all the right steps being on HRT. I thought I was so cutting edge, only to come to learn that I was on low dose and my estrogen was continuing to go down. And so I was continuing to have symptoms of perimenopause and then menopause. Like you said, sometimes they'd go away for a bit and then they'd reappear. And nobody was able to say that that's estrogen deficiency. It was, look at all the outside factors of your life that might be causing stress. And sure, there are those outside factors as well. But I'm interested in getting this word out to other women so that they don't have to suffer. It's not necessary.
It's really not. Women have more control over how their brains and bodies are declining than we've ever been led to believe. In fact, I do believe will be a movement. I believe there will be a time when women will realize, oh, I've been given low dose hormones this whole time. Why doesn't my doctor know about this? Well, the doctor doesn't know about it because they don't even teach it. They're still with the mindset, oh, well, if we can keep women's estrogen levels low, then the pharmaceutical industry can make money, the physicians can make money, everybody can make money off of this suffering. And that's really what I want to change with this. Also, so if you're a woman who's going through perimenopause, or if you're on HRT and it feels like you're not on hormones at all, I recommend going to advancedhormonebalancing.com and booking a complimentary discovery session to see if, advanced hormone replacement therapy would be a good fit for you. It's not for everybody. Advanced protocols are for generally healthy people, but it is so life transforming and life changing if you're a good fit for it. If you have a topic or a question that you want us to cover on our podcast, then go to menopausemoxie.com/podcast and fill out the contact form there and let us know what you want to hear on the show and what questions you'd like us to answer. You never know, you may hear one of your questions on our show.
Well, Maria, I just want to thank our listeners for joining us today. And thank you, of course, as always, for sharing your expertise.
You bet. It's really been a pleasure. And remember, everybody benefits when your hormones are balanced. We'll see you next time.